Hi, and welcome to another edition, a special edition of the Muscle News and Merlin podcast. My partner, Eric Broser, and eight-time Mr. Olympia, Lee Haney. How are you, Lee?
I'm doing great. Great to be on the show. Thank you. Thank you
Thank,
for the invite.
thank you very much. Thank you, Lee. I grew up, you know, watching you, and I was like 14, 15, 85, 86. I was still 16, when you were already dominating the sport, you know.
Wow, you've dated me.
Hey, I'll date you even more. I remember I have the videotape still from the 1983 Mr.
Yeah,
Olympia
yeah.
when I came in third.
I was I was telling Eric I still have these. Let me see, because the background. They were still in plastic, Lee.
Oh man,
Look
wow.
at that. Brand new, still in plastic.
Wow, I got to autograph those for you.
And I
Yeah,
have
you got to
this
take that
one.
out of the plastic for
I
that.
have this one with two guys really peed off because you beat them on the last one.
Oh man. Too bad, too
Yeah.
bad.
When I spoke to, I remembered. I said, I know I have some magazines of when he won, near the end.
Right.
But so Lee, uh, basically your career. Obviously, then Eric will jump in. You won the 82 NPC Nationals, right?
Yes. I won the 82 NPC Junior Nationals
Junior National.
first.
Yeah, and then you went
And
on to
then
the overall. And I wanted to ask, did you earn your pro card with the NPC or at the World Championships?
Well, during that time, you can only earn it at the World
I
Championship.
see. I thought so.
It's not
Wow.
like these days. You had to earn
No.
your stripes back then.
Yeah, like so the younger viewers. So imagine winning, going through all those bodybuilders. I put up the muscle memory on my screen here. Let me just share the screen so the viewers can see what I'm talking about. You guys seeing this? This is Lee Haney at the 1982 Nationals. Look at all these competitors. So that's a feat on its own, right? Then you go to the World Amateur Championships. Look at that. Look at that. Look at all the competitors from around the world. And this is just to get one pro card, right?
One pro card.
And
That's correct.
a wild card to the Olympia, right?
That's exactly right.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So it that was a feat on its own, I mean, still till today to win the world championships, it's still going on. It's a huge show, and to win that, you have to be the best of the best. Anyways, and then you went to the famous 1983 Olympia, right? And
Well, after that, it was the 1982 IFBB World Championship. So there was a stepping stone. The nationals only said you were the best of your particular country.
yeah, and then you went to the world championships, yes, of the IFBB.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Then you have to be victorious there.
yeah,
So
yeah,
during that era, there was only maybe 4 or 5 pro cards given out a
yeah,
year, and only after you won your division in the IFBB World Championship.
yeah, amazing. And then you went to the Olympia and you had that famous you lost some weight, right?
Yes, I peaked about 4 weeks before the 1983 Olympia at 243 pounds. And as I've said one other time, Arnold saw me at that weight, and 4 weeks before at World's Gym, and said, "Lee, how are you looking this great? 4 weeks away from the show." And I just shrugged my shoulder like, I don't know. I'm just this is who I am.
Yeah, yeah,
But I ended up losing 10 pounds
yeah,
uh, before I entered the show in 1983. So I kept, particularly, as I said, I peaked and I started losing muscle. Didn't know what to do as an amateur at that time.
yeah, of
I
course.
was a pro, but I just didn't have enough
Yeah,
knowledge concerning how
yeah,
do I stop this weight drop.
yeah, yeah. And then you found the Samir at the best condition that he ever was, probably, you know.
Oh, Samir was absolutely incredible.
Yeah.
A well-deserved victory too.
Yeah. Back then it was slightly different, you know. The Olympia from 1st to 15th were they were all incredible, you know. It was just, you know, the small things that would make a difference between the winner and the, you know, the top five. Eric, do you have anything to
Oh, I've
continue?
got 100 things I could
I know
ask.
we can go on forever.
You know, Lee was you were like a huge, I mean, a huge influence in my training, becoming a competitive bodybuilder. I think we're sort of similar heights, and I was always drawn to the physiques that you know, were more V-tapered, more X-framed, wide up top, small waist. You know, the look that you had, the look that, you know, a Bob Paris, Barry DeMay, Mike Christian, those physiques are the ones that influenced me. So you were such an inspiration to me. And you know, I think my first competition was in 1989, so I was still building myself up while I was watching you win all those Olympias. But I had a couple of questions that I was curious about. So what did you do differently? So between 1983 and 1984, where you really started to, you immediately dominated. What did you do different from one year to the next that made the difference between, did you change your peaking process between 83 and 84?
Well, one of the things that I was always keen about doing, as were the majority of pros during that era, we kept notes. For instance, I wanted to find out what happened. How did I lose 10 pounds in the course of 4 weeks? And so, having notes, I was able to go back and look, and the amount of calories that I was taking in, the type of training program I was on. And a good friend of mine, Dr. Fred Hatfield, you know, you probably know Fred as Dr. Squat.
Sure, sure.
I mean, everybody knew Fred. I mean, you know,
I
you
read his
squatting
book.
1,000 pounds at the age of 43 years old. That doesn't make sense,
Yeah.
you know. So Fred, he worked. I lived in California at that time, and Fred worked at the Weider Center. So I got with him, and me and him went over everything. And Fred looked at me and said, "Lee, you cannot train like a horse and eat like a bird." He said, "You wasn't eating enough food. That's what happened." But see, you know, being a young bodybuilder, you know, when you say, "Okay, I'm going to stay on 3,000 calories," that's what you do. You don't have the kind of wisdom to say, "Okay, I'm losing weight. Why am I losing weight?" You know, so I didn't realize at that time I had taken my body to a deficit. What was okay 10, 12 weeks out from the show is not okay 8 weeks away from the show or 4 weeks away from the show. So my body really it started eating itself up. It started feeding on the muscle. So I increased the caloric intake. When I noticed a weight drop, you know, I brought the calories up by 250 more. Then I experienced another slight weight drop. It says slight, I'm saying going into 84. So all of a sudden it's okay, let's take the calories up again. Because as you flatten out, your body says, okay, you're being a bit deprived now. You're not giving me enough nutrition. So I made the adjustments there and went into the 1984 Olympia at 243 pounds, the same weight I was 4 weeks before the 1983 Olympia.
Right, right, right.
So I learned a very valuable lesson at that particular time on how to prepare for a show, how to manipulate the caloric intake, and then I experimented for the first time the proper way instead of guesstimating carb depletion and carbohydrate loading.
Mm-hmm.
And that's something else I attribute to Dr. Fred Hatfield. We spent so much time together, and Fred was I call him the mad scientist. We would sit together for hours and go over different type of plans. And, you know, once we got the key elements in place, I implemented those in my training and in my nutrition. And the rest was history.
So basically back then, it's like you had a coach to help you out even way back in the 80s, just to give you some advice, like, you know, not like running around with you all the time. You just would go to him maybe to help you out, Lee?
Yeah, that I guess you couldn't call Fred a coach.
Neutral.
He was more than that.
Yeah.
He's an exercise scientist, exercise physiology. Fred had got his degree from Russia.
Wow.
So when it came to knowledge, his was a whole nother level. That's why I respected him so much. I didn't just ask anybody in the bodybuilding world,
Yeah.
which I knew many legends living in California. You could have did that, but I guess at that time, I was around people like Albert Beckles,
Yeah, of course.
a youngster there, and Samir, and everybody had their own formula. They weren't going to share their formula with
Of
you.
course.
Because,
Yeah.
especially me.
Yeah.
I mean, a young snot nose, say, look,
Yeah.
I'm not telling this kid what I know.
Yeah.
He could end up being one of my enemies. So I went to Fred, who wasn't my enemy, who was a power lifter, but at the same time, he was a scientist, and he worked at the Weider Center.
Wow. Wow.
So Lee, one thing I've kind of always noticed about you is that in the off season, which I like to call progress season, actually, you never were the kind of person who would bulk up tremendous amount of weight. You would stay relatively, for your size, close to your contest weight. I don't mean a few pounds, but I mean you wouldn't blow up to 300 pounds to try to take that off. Do you think that was to your advantage? Is that something that you did on purpose? Was that something that you did to make sure that you kept the lines of your physique intact from show to show? Because a lot of people in the progress season, off season, what do you want to say? They just let it go, and they just blow up to these ridiculous weights, and then they have so much to take off. But you never really did that, did you?
No, I didn't. And the reason I would guess I had the best guys to learn from, the legends in sport of bodybuilding. You never saw Arnold blow up and get fat, or Robbie, or Frank Zane, or Roy Callender. I mean, Larry Scott. You never saw that in physiques during those eras. So my philosophy has always been: you can't flex it, don't carry it. And then the other thing, during that era, the telephone may ring. Someone within the IFBB would say, Lee, we would love for you to come to Italy for a week or so, Germany for a few weeks, or Japan, or wherever, which I've had a chance to go to over 30 different countries. They didn't want you to show up looking like Porky the Pig.
Yeah, of course.
And I mean, because bad news travel fast. So it was important to keep yourself in good shape in all season. And then by doing so, I looked at it like I didn't have to rush to fix anything with my physique. Because if you could watch your abs a year round and watch the muscle separation a year round, not contest ready, but at least you see the body grow. You're able to control it. That was always a better philosophy for me, as I learned from being around, some of the greatest. I never saw Samir out of shape, or none of these guys. Albert Beckles, we trained at the same gym a lot. And that's just what we did. Mike Christian, all of us. That's what we did. My only buddy that was caught like that one time, but of course that's when he was amateur was Rich Kaspari.
Yeah.
Matter of fact, I nicknamed him Fat Boy. I met him at a Gold's Gym when I was living in California near Reseda. We lived close to each other. And so I never will forget, Rich walked up to me and said, he's a youngster working at the gym. He said, Mr. Haney, what do you think? I said, I think you're fat. So anyway, you hear Rich tell that story. So anyway, man, he got his stuff together. We became great training partners.
Yeah.
And that was key to his success also.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. How was it? I mean, it's funny you mentioned Rich, and then you guys ended up training together. So, I mean, how was that training with, because then he became, if you want to say, your biggest adversary on stage, really, for many years. He was always chasing you. How was that training with the guy that's looking to unseat you? How was that?
It was great. I love a challenge. And Rich was hungry. He was young. And he listened very well. He never questioned what we were doing. As far as, well, why are we doing this? Or maybe I don't want to do that. No, Rich was never that way. He's very intense. He's got that Italian bloodline in him, Rocky Marciano. So listen, he don't give up easy. You don't scare Rich. So it was a perfect situation for me. Rich, matter of fact, he lived with me and my wife for several months, while we were there in California. My wife looked at him as one of her sons, even way back then. So it was a beautiful thing. When I went to New York for the first Olympia, his mom and dad and whole family welcomed me into their home. So we're still like brothers today. I love Rich dearly.
Yeah. So, I mean, did you, this is another question. I'm sorry, Kevin, if you have things,
No,
I
no,
have
it's okay.
things to talk
It's
to Lee
okay.
about.
It's okay.
So you obviously had many battles with him on stage. You had some battles with Lee Labrada, also, to me, also one of the best physiques that ever lived. Just a beautiful, today probably would be the classic Mr. Olympia. Uh, did you ever worry about these guys, or were you always confident that you were going to win every time you went into the Olympia? How was that for you? Like, did you ever say, "Oh man, Rich is getting really good," or "Lee is getting really good," or were you just like, "As long as I keep getting better, I'm going to win"?
Well, I never worried about anybody, period. My attitude was always when I hit the stage, I was going to be first and second place. Everybody else had to worry about third and fourth. I wanted to be that far ahead of the deal. So, and that was my mindset. I always knew if I could create, even as a youngster at the age of 21, 2021, watching the magazine, because that's all we had back during that era.
Sure.
I said to myself, if I can look like Robbie, if I can look like Arnold, if I can move like Frank Zane and develop muscle maturity, a combination of the three of them, who can beat me? Nobody can beat that, because that was the standard. That's why physiques during my era and proceeding into the eras of Sean Ray, Kevin LeVeron, Chris Cremier, all of these physiques, Vince Taylor, there was a standard that had to be upheld in order to be at the top in the Mr. Olympia competition. You couldn't have a wide waist. You couldn't be blocky. You couldn't have weird, overdeveloped body parts that stood out. Everything had to be in sync. As today you see a lot of big, blockier type of physiques. Well, that wasn't the standard during our era. And we was held to that standard by what the industry said, this is what we want you to look like. We will not accept you looking like that. This is the standard. And that's the way it was during that time. So the beauty of the physiques had to remain that, and as you see now, the brakes have been sort of, somebody took the brakes off,
Yeah.
And said, okay, well, let's judge what we see. Well, and if you make a decision on judging what you see, what was your part in creating what we now see in the world of bodybuilding? So if there was one voice being spoken and a standard being adhered to, then the integrity of the beauty of the physiques would still be intact. And that's not what we see today. We see it in the classic physique, but classic physique is classic bodybuilding.
Yeah.
They just gave it another name.
Now, while you're moving into that, Eric, did you have something else to continue on? Or?
Lee, I want to put you on the spot, and I want to ask you one more question, if you don't mind. I'm so curious to know. Obviously, you won 8 straight Olympias. You finished in 91, which I think maybe was the best ever. I think that might have been the best physique you ever showed, was 91. And then obviously we had Dorian Yates come onto the scene that year. I want to know, and what if you had continued for another year or two, if you decided I'm not going to retire, do you think you would have still beaten Dorian in those next couple of years? I know it's a tough question because we don't know, but I mean, what do you think?
Well, it all depends on what the judges wanted to see. As I said, that standard of, I had a 31 and a half inch waist.
That was crazy.
at 254 pounds. I was only
Right.
31 years old, so beauty is in the eye of the beholder. I think the first year during there with me, of course, my physique was more mature than his. My muscle maturity was, it was what it was. During had not caught up with that. I felt, and as far as going another year, Dory even asked me herself, Lee, what do you think about doing another year? I said, man, no, I'm going fishing. I got other things I want to do besides get on the stage with you. I mean, and I say that respectively because I was a dad. I was the first one to have two kids and showcase to the world during my reign as Mr. Olympia, you know, and I wanted to enjoy more of my family. Not say I sacrificed my family. I would never do that. My family was always the number one priority to me, raising my kids. The Mr. Olympia title and the training, that was my job. It was not my idol. It was not my God. So I was looking forward to what else life had to offer.
Sure.
So there was several things ahead of me that I was looking forward to using my faith and moving forward in. Had a show on ESPN that was coming.
Yeah.
I had several books that I had written. I had the Animal Kingdom gym I had created. So there was a lot of other things that my interest was turned towards. So that my eighth Olympia, it was like an exhale. Whew, this is over. I'm excited about what's next. And so the eighth Olympia was enough. Spiritually, we look at the number 7 as the number of completion. 7 is when you do 8, you step beyond completion. And I had my health and I had my wealth, and I was excited about what else life had to offer.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think that's amazing, and I think that you retired at the time that was right for you. So you did what was right for you, and you'd accomplished so much on stage, and you had other things that you wanted to look forward to and accomplish in life. So I mean, you retired at the exact right time. I just think that a lot of people, and myself included, say, "Man, Lee was 31. You can keep improving all the way through your 40s. I mean, some of these guys didn't even win their Olympias, until they were 40 years old. Sean Roden, Ronnie Coleman was near. I can only imagine how good you would have gotten. So that's what we'd be like. Wow, could you imagine Lee was at it?
But you
5
know
years?
something. Eric. One thing when you look at the life of an athlete, period. Once you start to hit around 30, as an athlete, the wear and the tear that you place on your body, it's unforgiving. Your body didn't forget all the pounding that it experienced during that time. When I won my 7th Olympia, it's like I woke up the day after and I was in so much pain. I mean, I didn't feel like I could go on after that, and I had to change my training system to maybe I call it a 3-day power circuit, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, doing maybe arms and chest Monday, legs Wednesday, back and shoulders Friday. I had to stay on that for probably about a month and a half to 2 months. And I had to do a detox. I had to detox my body, my liver, my kidney, my bloodstream, my urinary system, my colon, the whole deal with vegetables, fruits, plenty of water. And within that month and a half to 2 months, my system came back online. And I felt good. I was refreshed. And my wife said, yeah, we got to do that April. But your time as an athlete is very short-lived. Most athletes are out, whether it's basketball, baseball, football, we're out of there at that particular time. If you stay longer than that, notice you mentioned Sean Roden. He's not here anymore.
True.
You look at what happened to Ronnie near his 40s. I mean, his frame just couldn't continue to take that type of pounding. You look at Dorian, just recently had a hip replacement, tore his tricep from the bone. You look at these kind of things that happens because just normally within the body, your hormone levels start to take a dip. Your growth hormone levels start to take a dip when you start reaching your mid-30s. Now, you can push it if you want to And in some cases, you know, you can last a while longer, but in many cases you don't. LeBron James is different. You know, he's not squatting up and down with a ton
Yeah,
of weight,
that's different.
following the same movements all the time. So
Yeah.
as athletes, you really got to use wisdom. You can stay longer because sometimes your ego can make you stay longer. But I didn't have such ego. I didn't ego train, nor did I ego try to exist. I mean, you have to face realities that age is real. And the pain that the body is sending a signal, pain is there for a reason. Hey, man, if you don't back off, something bad is going to happen.
Yeah.
And we've seen that. I mean, we see it all the time.
Yeah.
When guys try to make comebacks in their 40s, or they trying to compete in their mid 40s, bad things happen. It just don't work. The body's not designed for that.
So
So the last thing I want to ask you before I know we want to talk about the stuff that you have been talking about online lately about where the sport is now. Just real quick, do you have, of all the years that you won the Olympia, do you have a year where you had a favorite look for yourself that you felt you were your best ever? Was it 91 or was it a different year?
Well, two things happened. In 1984, when I carb depleted and had a grasp on my nutrition, came in at 243. That was important for me because I had learned something that I never knew before. So, and with that new knowledge, I was able to move forward in my career, my competitive career, as far as learning and knowing how to peak properly. The last Olympia, 1991, after years of muscle maturity and then having an understanding of different training systems, I went in that show at 254 pounds, the biggest I've ever been. My lines were still there. My weights were still there. My posing maturity and my showmanship had, I mean, it was just a whole nother level. Everything was. You know, I've often looked back at my 1984 Mr. Olympia win and looked at 1991. And I'm like, man, how the heck did I win the Olympia in 1984? Because I had progressed so much further in posing and learning how to handle my physique and how to showcase it to the best of my ability. So all of those things made a difference. So that 1991 was absolutely incredible. And to tell the truth, it may sound a little strange. It felt like the easiest Mr. Olympia also. It felt so easy. I was never stressed during that time. And I think too, with the training, the other thing I learned too, which is very important, is I would use a 3-on-off-1 training regimen in the off season. Kept me full, allowed me to recover good. It also allowed for muscle maturity. And then I would always, about 5 weeks before a show, 6 weeks, I would switch to a straight 6, which means shorter recovery time, a little bit more stressful, and the body wouldn't stay full as much as I would want it to, as it did during the 3-on-off-1. So for the last Olympia, I stayed with the 3-on-off-1. I stayed full the whole time. I had much more recovery time. And so it made the workout felt almost like I was cheating because I wasn't physically stressed as I was doing the straight 6. Now I won the junior nationals doing the straight 6. I won my first NPC nationals doing the straight 6. And that was fine and dandy. In both competitions, I felt I won them a little bit flat. But after gaining more knowledge and knowing the benefits of having a little bit more recovery time and understanding nutrition, that was for an awesome combination. I could have went for another Mr. Olympia title. I know I could have and could have won, but my heart just wasn't in it.
Sure.
Yeah, I get a lot of people saying, well, Lee, he heard the Dorian train coming. No. Dorian didn't look like Robbie. He didn't look like Arnold. He did not look like Frank Zane, period.
Yeah.
I did look like all three of them.
Yeah.
And I was a standard. So if the judges wanted to maintain that standard, hey, there I was.
Yeah. So like moving into the state of bodybuilding, the way I see it, my opinion, I think it will be the way the bodybuilders are training today and the way they are appearing at shows. I see it that it will never happen again. I don't know if in my lifetime or whatever that will have a person winning more than 4 or 5 shows, Olympias consecutively. Imagine 8 and retiring, not losing. I think this all comes into place with the state of bodybuilding today, like you were saying, Lee. Athletes trying to get to a point really fast. Uh, there's I see as well the structure is there. I don't know the junior nationals. I don't know if it's so popular anymore. Like, you start national shows and then you get qualified. I see a lot of athletes. They're not going through that long process, maybe of 4 or 5 years as amateurs, honing in on their physiques to to be to build a world-class physique. Like you had to go to the world championships and get to that level. Today, some guys or girls or whatever, they do one show, they earn their pro card, and they might be lucky to earn their Olympia qualification on that same day without any experience. And then they go to the Olympia. They end up finishing near the end. So what do? They try to rush their body other ways instead of the training that takes a long process. As we know, the physical body, you can't gain so much weight in a year. And the way you said, you stayed in condition all through the year and you just tweaked certain things before each competition. And I see that's the problem we're having today. And then the injuries kick in, you know and the athlete falls apart before his peak. you know
Yeah,
that's
you're 100% correct. You see a lot of that. The body haven't had time to mature.
yeah,
And for instance, you see a guy, he may turn pro, get his, pro card that's being handed out like
yeah,
candy now.
yeah, yeah,
He didn't have to earn anything. The
yeah,
first 2 people turn pro, and
sure,
this just goes on and on. And so then, they try to get as big as they can in their first pro debut.
yeah,
So the guy put on 20 pounds and won, from his, for his first pro debut.
yeah,
You can't put on 20 pounds and expect for it to be quality with
yeah,
muscle maturity and good stuff. It's not going to happen. What you do see is a strange looking physique. I see that happen a lot with the shorter guys who now boast about, well, in all season I was up to 300 pounds.
yeah, yeah,
300 pounds, you're only 5'6", 5'7".
yeah,
You're a cyclops. You've destroyed, or you're destroying the base of balance in your physique.
yeah,
And that's something that the integrity of physique is something that need to be well taken care of or engineered properly. If it's not, then you get a physique that looks like that of an orc,
yeah,
and so that's what we see a lot of.
yeah,
But see, and again, it's something that's being allowed by the industry,
yeah. That's the
you
problem.
know, and
We
that's the problem.
Yeah,
These guys are not making themselves. The industry is making these guys.
yeah,
So the industry can say, hey, let's hold back here. What are we doing? What are we saying? Let's be united in our vision of what we want the world of bodybuilding to look like, or what direction we want it to go.
yeah. Like for example, you mentioned on another show, they asked you like Keon Pearson. Um, I think pound for pound at the moment, he has one of I think the best physiques in the industry. And Eric knows him very well because they train at the same gym. You said people are telling him if you pack on 10 or 20 more pounds, you can go to the open class. I think he can go to the open. He's fine where he is, but if he had to go to the open class, he can go the way he is.
Yes, yeah.
If he wants to compete.
I'll agree 100% with that. Matter
Yeah.
of fact, Keon, he qualified at the Lee Haney Games.
Wow.
That's where he began his whole deal at my show some years back. When I first saw him, I said, wow, this young man is incredible. He have a bright future there. So he has to be careful that, and again, if he turns into something that the industry, well, you need to gain 20 pounds, and then you create this ugly physique, he will lose the beauty and the engineering that he was gifted with through his training. So you have to be very careful with that. Hopefully, I'm just hoping that some of what I said, and it's been out on floating around on social media now, I'm hoping that the judges will step back and say, oh, wait a minute, let's do a reset here.
Yeah.
Let's do a reset. Let's have a meeting of the minds and reestablish the criteria of what these physiques need to look like. Now we're talking open class.
Yeah.
I think, we're talking open class. I'm not talking about the classic physique. Those are beautiful. Yeah. Bumstead is beautiful. Keon is beautiful. All these guys are beautiful. Don't destroy their beauty. Yeah. Maintain the integrity of what the physique is supposed to look like. Yeah. The days in which the general public was in awe of the way we looked and wanted to look like us.
That's exactly, like, for example, when they say, oh, this bodybuilder, not to mention any names, he's 320 pounds off season and he's really short, I can imagine these guys can barely breathe, they can barely walk, but then if you see Samson Dayo, then he says he's at 290 or 300, but the guy is huge, he's a tall man, he can handle the weight, and probably even himself, he might feel a bit out of shape as well, even though, he's in off season, but I think when it comes down to it, if Samson is on point, or even at 98% or 97%, he'll be very hard to defeat, because as you say, the taller guy that's in shape and has the right genetics it's always a bit difficult to defeat,
Yes, I agree with that. Samson has a beautiful physique that flows very well. Andrew Jack is also, have height, so they can carry this type of balance. Somebody, he looks great. He just won the Dubai Pro.
Yeah,
he has height and great lines too. So when you're talking big guys carrying this kind of weight, it makes sense.
Yeah.
But when you talk about a shorter guy carrying, enormous amount of weight, and it's just there's no flow there. You can try to say, "Oh, that looks great. That's mass," but it's not mass with class. Period.
Yeah, exactly.
Two different deals. Exactly. Lita Brada wasn't as big, but man, he was beautiful. Yeah. Frank Zane wasn't as big, but McCoway wasn't that. Yeah. But they were all beautiful physiques. So we have legends that prove that you don't have to be big in order to beat a giant. I mean, McCoway spanked my butt all over Europe in 1983. Yeah. I mean, weighing, I think, 152 pounds.
Yeah, one of my favorites.
Everything was where it's supposed to be. Everything fit, and he was able to maneuver, and you never saw a weak spot.
Yeah,
because he was learned so that you would never see one.
Yeah, so
that's mastery.
So and getting back to like the state of bodybuilding, like for example, Samson, the main discussion is he has to come in tighter, he has to come in shredded, he has to come. Do you think that those comments coming even from some people higher up sometimes, it can affect the bodybuilder because he might go, I mean, a beautiful bodybuilder like, rest in peace, Cedric McMillan, he never came in shredded, but he had a fantastic physique. And Samson.
Yeah, I think you cannot make conditioning the total standard of the champions.
Yeah,
I think symmetry got to be there.
Yeah,
muscle maturity has to be there. That's and posing presentation, presenting his body. Those are the three standards that should be there, not just one.
Yeah.
Because when you say to an athlete, you got to be tighter. In his mind, he said, well, I got to stop drinking water.
Yeah.
How much do I have to sacrifice with my health? What ends up happening there, he can destroy his kidney or destroy his liver or end up with aneurysm. Any of those kind of things can happen from going to extreme measures. Now, what I see, I know without a doubt, what is happening in this industry is the training systems. Most of them are wrong. The only one that I see that's been able to handle size and is not overbearing is Hadi Chapin.
Yeah.
But Hadi was trained by Honey Rambo.
Yeah.
Honey knows his stuff. He comes in ripped all the time. He doesn't look like a cyclops,
Yeah.
even at his height. You know, he's not the most beautiful
No.
thing you ever see. You know,
Yeah,
it's still a little weird ratio, but
Yeah.
he's far better for his height than anybody else out there. I would say you could put him and Keon Pearson in the same deal. Keon would win as far as symmetry is concerned, but Hadi is something to look at in awe as far as conditioning.
Yeah.
So, and why I keep complimenting Honey Rambo is the fact that he understands and he uses an old school concept to training. You know, when I found that most bodybuilders now use a system whereby there's too much of a gap in between training the muscle parts. For instance, the straight six was during Arnold's time. Everybody's ripped during that era. I came along 3-on-off ones, and you know, Kevin Liverone, most of those guys 3-on-off one, we were bigger than the guys who use a straight six. Now these guys now, they're on another type of program where you're training maybe one body part once a week. And so without the frequency of training a particular body part, the muscle maturity cannot be realized. So you're not going to get ripped or cross-striated triceps and these kinds of characteristics in a body that's only, you know, you're training your arms once every 6 days or something weird program. You're bigger, but the quality is not there.
Do you have anything to add, Eric, on this?
Well, yeah, I mean, in talking about piggybacking off of the training part of this. So, Lee, I've been a coach in this industry, coaching every division, bodybuilders, males, females, classic, men's physique, everything. For 30 years, I've been doing it. And one of the things that I've been intent on teaching now, during my entire competitive career, I was drug free. I was always drug tested, and I remained drug free through my entire competitive career. I was a drug free pro, and that was just my choice. So I became very big in the beginning, working with natural athletes because I was able to get drug-like conditioning naturally.
Yeah.
So I learned how to do that. That for me, since I was working with natural guys, natural females, it was done through training and diet. That's it.
Yeah.
Of course, there were some good supplements to use. Obviously, there's some good supplements out there that are very, very effective, but I didn't have the drug side of it. So I studied training. I studied the science of training. I used to own a gym in New York, and I would literally use that as my lab. And I would learn what I did with my training is I started to understand that it's not all about just pounding the body with heavy weights relentlessly. It was about building tension in the muscle. It was about feeling every centimeter of every single rep, feeling the positive, controlling the negative, sometimes holding the stretch position, holding the contracted position, just building tension in the muscle with less weight, but really creating that mind-muscle connection and learning how to feel everything, not just getting the weight from point A to point B, you know? And that to me is the key when it comes to training. I think that a lot of people get it wrong. They just pound weights. They just up and down, up and down, up and down. Let me just get my set of 10 reps and you're done in 10 seconds. I do with my clients sometimes sets that will last a minute long because I'm just focused on just getting stretching, squeezing, just getting mentally connected to the muscle. And then, of course, the diet as well. But then, of course, as my career went on, I started working with, athletes who were enhanced and which is, fine. I have nothing against it. It's just, it is what it is. But I've always tried to, every athlete that I've gotten, if they had never used PEDs and they wanted me to guide them, I'm extremely conservative because I'm worried about their health. So I want them to do things very slowly, not like a lot of people teach, where just shotgunning all kinds of stuff, right from the beginning that you have nowhere to go. And I have a lot of, IFBB athletes and NPC athletes who come to me, and I'll ask them, they had a coach before, and I'll ask them what their protocol will look like. And I'll be like, no, 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 way too much, way too much. We got to pare that down. You're not going to be healthy. You don't need all that much. And so I kind of just teach people the foundation of building a physique is training and food. That's the foundation. The PEDs, they're an icing on the cake. And of course, we know they're effective. Obviously, they are. But there's a way to use them. There's a way to properly use them. There's a way to cycle them. There's a way to do it in as healthy a possible way. So do you think that is kind of where we've gotten lost somewhere through the years? That because I've noticed that when younger guys come to me and they'll say, Eric, what do I have to take? Eric, what drugs do I use? It's not how should I train? How should I diet? It's more along the lines of what drugs should I take? Do you think that's where we've gotten lost? That it's become more about the enhancements rather than the foundation of training and diet?
Well, Eric, you made some incredible points and the truest of points. That is total old school bodybuilding. That's the foundation of how everything began. Training, nutrition, muscle mind connection. And as I spent more and more time with Honey Rambaugh, that's where he came from. You guys came from the same school of the natural approach of training and nutrition and mind and muscle connection. And if an athlete begun his career in that way, I've even taught kids off of using any kind of enhancement. Number one, when you're in your teens and early 20s, your growth hormone and T level is out the roof. You don't need that.
Yeah.
You need to first understand nutrition.
Yeah.
Because you got to have that in order to grow. Secondly, you have to get a feel for the correct training system and how to apply it to your body. You have to understand the mind and the muscle connect. So everything you says here is 100% correct. And one of the dangers that exists now is a lot of these social media coaches.
Yeah, I was about to tell you that.
Yeah, and the industry pushing these, these, I guess they call them influencers.
Yeah.
That are on the internet spilling poison amongst the mind of other young athletes. That's a dangerous place to be. And it's terrible when you see the sport of bodybuilding reward these type of influencers. Yeah. They talk about what they're doing and this and that, and all of a sudden they're holding them up saying, look at this person. Yeah. He's a great coach. Most of these people who are coaches are not qualified to be a coach. Yeah. Unless you've been there, done that, you got your health and you have a level of understanding, several years of understanding, then that's a whole nother ball game. I often tell young folks, listen, if you haven't won the Creekwater USA, what is the conversation about enhancements? Yeah. I say, because number one, if you're a donkey, you can give a donkey a 14-karat pair of golden horseshoes. You can put a 50,000 saddle on him. At the end of the day, he's still a donkey. Yeah, so it's not going to make any difference.
Yeah, I want to add, Eric, if you don't mind.
No, go ahead. Sure.
When I was 16, 17, I don't know if you remember him, Lee Henderson Thorne.
Oh yes.
He had a World's Gym was supposed to open in Toronto when I lived there, and obviously I paid the membership, and this gym didn't open. So then we got this offer that we go to the small gym further up, and it was and I walked in. It was really quiet, and there was Henderson training. He was at his just before, I think he was at his peak. This short, bodybuilder. I was in awe. I was like 15, I just got my driver's license, 16, seeing this guy in front of me, and there was what's her name there, Laura. What's her name? The Canadian bodybuilder, female bodybuilder. She was Chris Aceto's wife.
Creeville.
Laura Palm.
Creeville. Was it Laura?
Laura Crevalle.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Laura Correa. Wow. I couldn't believe it when I saw her. She was doing leg presses. And back then you just lift a weight and you're young, you get a pump right away. I mean, you see yourself growing,
Yeah.
and I remember, Henderson would come up, Henderson Toro would come up to me and would say, "How are you? You doing all right?" I said, "Yeah." He would see you there playing with the weights, you're still young.
Right.
And I once asked him, I said, Henderson, how do I eventually become like you? I'm talking 1986. He looked at me and he says, "Your mom, yeah, what are you, European?" I said, "Yeah, my parents are European." He said, "Your mom cooks good food?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "Eat that food, go have a couple of burgers and keep training." He told me, he didn't say anything about, PEDs or anything.
Right.
Not,
Mm-hmm.
and today I thank him for that, because
Mm-hmm.
imagine you're a young kid and you get influenced by certain things. And then I
Yeah.
went on to a
Yeah.
different gym. There was this construction worker. He had the most amazing arms, a short Portuguese guy, all day,
Mm-hmm.
working, doing the hard work. He had a fantastic physique and he was in his late 40s. And I asked him, as well, I got a bit older, and I said, "What do you do to become like that?" And he said, to get a good pump, he said, a little bit of vino before you come to the gym. He said, drink a bit of wine and you'll be good to go. Nobody talked about this stuff.
Yeah.
You fast forward 20 years, and that's all they talk about in the gym. Take this, take that, try this, try that, buy it
Yeah.
from that guy, buy it from this guy.
Yeah.
Anyways, it's
Yeah.
you have to
In
be.
bodybuilding, Kevin, bodybuilding, it was based upon a school of
Yeah,
nutrition and health and fitness.
yeah,
I mean, I still eat today the same way I ate when I was, a 19-year-old. I mean, my lunch a few minutes ago, it was northern beans, it was cabbage, it was okra, it was uh, it was cornbread. You know what I'm saying? I eat the same way yesterday. It was spinach, it was pinto beans, it was yams, it was squash. So that's the way I've always eaten. So I've never gotten fat. My
yeah,
system has always stayed healthy. And that's what I learned from reading the magazines during those eras.
yeah,
And we were protected during that time too.
yeah,
Joe Weider or Dan Lurie or Perry Rader, they didn't allow garbage in the publications.
yeah, yeah,
They only allowed truth. I mean, Bob Kennedy, it was always truth. But the
yeah,
internet, every knucklehead in the world
yeah,
can go on there and promote ignorance,
yeah,
and ignorance begets more ignorance.
yeah, yeah. So
Yeah, I think that one of the biggest problems I think is now that we've moved into this age of technology where everything is just so quickly. I mean, we always talk about, Kevin and I talk about how, you had to wait for the next magazine to hit your mailbox before you knew
Yeah,
who won the contest that happened the month
exactly. I
before,
mean,
or
yeah,
you had to call World of Gold's Gym.
yeah,
Yeah, exactly. So I mean, back then and now everything's just there,
yeah,
So
in
I
your
think that
face.
I think the problem, see that there's two things that, I mean, I love teaching everybody, but I'm very concerned about the young athletes coming up
Yeah.
because I want to try to teach them correctly young so that they always have that knowledge. And I also like teaching, people I mean, like I said, everybody, but I like teaching people in the 40s and 50s who think that they're done and show them that you're not done, that you could still build a great physique and have a great physique and be healthy if you know how to train properly and eat properly as you get older, as your hormone levels change, so on and so forth. So I love teaching all that stuff, but I think that with the young people, they want things so fast because that's
Yeah.
the world that they're living in, that they want to, I mean, when a kid comes to me and I'll be like, well, what's your goals? And they'll be like, well, I want to do my first show this year. And they've never even trained before. And they're like, and I hope to have my pro card in the next year. I'm like, are you kidding me? I'm like, it's so ridiculous when you think about
Yeah.
how it used to be. Guys would be entering the nationals or the USA and they'd try 6, 7, 8 times before they would maybe get their pro card.
Yeah,
And now it's everything they want to quick. And I think that's the major problem with the PEDs and the drugs, because they're like, well, I don't care. I just want to take this and take that, and I want to go from 150 to 250 pounds in a year. And that's where a lot of the problem starts, you know. And I think that's the most dangerous part of this. But I'm gonna, I there are so many influences out there, and you can't do anything about it. But I know that with myself and my teaching as a coach and on shows like this, I just want to try to do my part, like you're still trying to do, Lee, and teach kids the right way and teach people the right way, and that is basically that the foundation. There's nothing more anabolic than food. Nothing more anabolic than food.
Exactly.
I don't care if you're not eating right and you're not training right and you're taking all the drugs in the world, you're going to look like crap. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
But if you know how, and listen, like I said, I trained naturally and I competed naturally, and I'm like, 5'11", 5'11 and a half. And I was on stage, I wasn't a monster, but I was 215 pounds, shredded, ripped to the bone. I had a 30-inch waist, like you talk about, a tiny little waist. And everybody thought I was on drugs. Everybody did.
Yeah.
And I would be like, nope, I'm not.
That's a
And
compliment.
they're like, well, that's not possible. I'm like, no, yes, it is.
Yeah.
And they're like, well, then you must have been a genetic freak. And I'm like, no, when I started training, I was the same height I am now, 125 pounds. So, I mean, it's just about how to do things correctly and how to do things in a healthy way. And I'm 56 years old. I'm still in the gym, lifting weights, do things differently than I used to.
Yeah.
Maybe more warming up, maybe doing, even slower reps, just doing things carefully, but I'm still progressing. And that's, to me, that's what I try to teach my clients, especially even the ones who compete on a high level. I mean, I have two girls going into the Masters Miss Olympia this year. And I'll just tell you as an aside, funnily, one of my girls she's the current Masters Miss Olympia bodybuilder. Her name is Roshana Boswell. And I call her the female Lee Haney because she has your physique as a female, the tiny little waist, sweeping thighs, wide shoulders. She's got such a beautiful body. You would love it. So we're hoping to repeat this year in about 7 weeks. But I want people to understand that, and I think I get this across pretty well, and that it's not all about just the trophy or whatever. You also want to think about your life after. You want to be healthy.
There you go.
You want to play with your kids or your grandkids, and you want to live a long life. You're not going to be doing this forever. So there's a way to balance everything out.
Right.
So that's what I try to teach. And that's why one of the reasons we want to have you on the show, because you're out there saying this now, and Kevin and I love it. We think it's fantastic.
So, Lee, I know you're a busy man. Moving on to something very important to you. We have the Lee Haney Games.
Oh, yes.
Now we're talking.
Right. Man, I'm so excited about this year's event too, man. Wow.
Yeah. Look at that. So, November 1st, right?
Right. November 1st, 2025.
Yeah, 2025. The show is not canceled. It's going.
No, it's not canceled. I think there was an error.
Yeah.
Floating out there, but no, it's not canceled. It's more than alive. It's for real. And we're excited about this event.
Yeah.
I think, Kevin, you saw where we're going to be reintroducing the teenagers.
Yeah, here it is.
Yeah. That's it, man. You got to have babies in your organization.
Yeah.
And the thing is, just as Eric was saying, my goal is to make sure the young athletes get knowledge, real knowledge that can help them.
Yeah.
And so we're going to be doing, I'm going to be doing some online FaceTimes and Instagram lives, giving them great information leading up to the show. They can also, reach out to me at info@LeeHaneyGames.com and get other information about training or how to prepare for a show properly. Matter of fact, we're in the process of also setting up a free seminar. It's going to be free. Fantastic. And we're going to have it live streamed. So I'll be hitting you guys back up so you can get the word out there to all of your people too.
Yeah.
John Hansen is going to be involved with us in doing this. I love fantastic. John. John was a natural Mr. Olympia. Yeah. He's also one of my historians.
Yeah.
Working with the
John's great.
The IAFS, the International Association of Fitness Science. That's my personal training organization that is now the overhead for the Lee Haney Games, for the athletes event, what we're going to be calling the Lee Haney Classic Bodybuilding Championships.
Exactly. Yeah.
And so we have teenagers, we have the novices, we have the open events too.
Yeah.
So then we're going to have deadlifts. We're going to have a golf tournament the Thursday before.
Yeah.
We have the coin toss. You'll also see coming up real soon, matter of fact, Georgia Tech, which is located here in Atlanta. They're going to oversee our calisthenic championship. You know, it's push-ups, sit-ups, endurance type of event. Then we're going to have dance for the young ladies. We're going to have the Fit Kid Challenge for kids. So
yeah,
we got something there for everybody. So we're extremely excited about what we're doing and getting this next generation healthy.
Yeah, yeah. Do you think, obviously, just to put it out, this is not affiliated with the NPC anymore, right?
No, this is under the International Association of Fitness Science, my own organization that I started around probably about 12 years ago, with the goal of enhancing exercise, fitness, nutrition to give, knowledge to people. We've already certified people in Brazil, Canada, nations of Islam, Israel, all over the United States. So we have a beautiful core of people that are out there training folks. I love to have Eric on board with us too, because his knowledge is incredible.
There you go.
Lee, I was actually going to say to you, if there's anything I could do to help, being that we're so on the same page, you just let me know.
And
yeah, man, we're going to be doing it together. It's all about these kids,
Yeah, and your son Joshua is a well-known trainer as well.
Oh yeah, Joshua. Josh played football at the Citadel, so he's one of the lords of the ring, right?
Yeah.
He went to the Citadel, played football there, and then went on to play some pro ball, several, for a few years. And so Josh is sort of the engineer of the Lee Haney Games. He helps put it all together. I'm the mayor. Hey, how y'all doing? And my daughter's he's an event planner. My wife is a chief financial officer, telling everybody what to do. So
of course,
we have a lot of beautiful people involved. Yeah, man. So
I got.
Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Sorry. I want to thank Joshua because obviously living in Europe, so many, I think I sent an email here for you, or send it here, or Instagram. I sent Joshua an email, it was late for me. It was at night here. When I woke up in the morning, boom, I saw his email. I said, wow, and he was really friendly. And I want to bring him on the show as well when he has a chance one day. Because I told him, I said, I want, because I didn't know that he was really into training people and things like that either. I was amazed because, we always hear about Lee Haney, and then, the kids, some kids, they like what their father does, their mother does, and they follow the same path, like Lee and his son, Hunter.
Yes, Josh is a great trainer, athlete.
Yeah.
He never shown, he trained very well, understands systems.
Yeah.
He's more of the athletic side, speed, agility.
Yeah.
I mean, at 175 pounds, he could full squat 500 pounds.
Yeah.
And I said to him, Josh, why are you squatting 500 pounds? Well, because I can. I said, okay, you are a quarterback and a wide receiver. Do not squat 500 pounds. I don't need you tearing yourself up. And my daughter, Olympia, she played volleyball for Auburn and also for SCAD. And she could jump 10 foot 5 inches. She could actually dump a basketball goal. That's how athletic she is. Yeah. So, of course, my kids, they're great kids, great people. And, they was raised properly. We treat people the way we want to be treated. They're beautiful people. When you come to the Lee Haney Games, you're going to get to meet them. You'll meet the other people that we surround ourselves with. We are here to serve. Yeah. And I want to make that clear. The International Association of Fitness Science is an organization that's geared towards trainers serving the general public. And that's who I am. I'm here to serve. I'm not here to have people serve me. And as a heart of a bodybuilder, I know what they feel. I've been there, done that. So I care about our athletes. When you come to my show, I promise you're going to have a great time. If you don't, then point me to the person who's giving you a hard time, and I'll get that straightened out real fast.
So obviously this is open to any athlete from no restrictions.
Any country, no restriction, is non-sanctioned. It's under the International Association of Fitness Science. Yeah. So, you know, and we set it up in that way so that it doesn't, athletes, it's very expensive to compete in a show.
Yeah, of course.
So, you know, all of the monies they have to spend for this and sanction cards and all, you're not going to have to do that, you know, with my events. It's an international event, so no matter what country you're from, you're welcome. You're a teenager, you're welcome. You're in the open division, you're welcome. So for people who have questions about how this is going to work, go to LeeHaneyGames.com.
Yep.
And it'll give you a rundown of exactly how the event will be organized. And guess what? It will have the old school classical bodybuilding style testing. We're looking at symmetry, muscularity, posing. And we're going to have judges who really know what they're doing.
Yeah. Speaking about posing, the symmetry round, you know, that's not included anymore in the pro.
Which is a mistake. That is a mistake.
Yeah, and Milo
should always be included.
Yeah,
the waist, shoulder taper, balance of the physique. That's what makes the physique beautiful. Yeah, if not, you'll have a stage full of trolls.
Yeah. I mean, Milo Sargent has been preaching. And if you go look at his videos on YouTube, he goes way back 5, 6, 7, 8 years saying we need this round back in the sport because nobody can hide anything. You're there. Perfect poses, front, side, you turn around again, the back, you know, the other side. So that gives the judges an indication of what they're looking at, you know.
Exactly. That's the way it was.
Yeah.
That's the way it's coming back. That's the way our show will be judged. And nobody will be standing there like they're on a Harley motorcycle and their legs roll out and looking all squat and weird.
Yeah,
you know,
it's true. That at the moment they're talking about that a lot today. I don't know if you mentioned it. Did you see it, Eric? You know, talking about the.
Oh yeah. I've seen it all over the place. I mean, it's become a big debate, and I totally agree that round is a very, very important part of the sport and should be back in there. And I also am disappointed that the posing round doesn't mean anything anymore.
Yeah, that's
because it used to be judged as well. You know, the posing round.
They don't judge
and, you know, and we've discussed this on the show before. To me, Lee, I mean, I think that, you know, you diet for a show, you get ready for a show. The amount of time you put into it compared to the amount of time you spend on stage is so little. And I think that, you know, obviously the mandatory poses, you know, you have to go through that and you compare it.
Yeah.
But, you know, during the posing round is when you get to really show your individuality. You get to, if you're smart, you can show off your strengths versus weaknesses. You could show off the beauty of the physique. You could show your, you know, whatever poses you love. And I think that art is lost for the most part. And I really hate to see that because if you look back at people yourself, you look back at Lee Labrada, you look back at Muhammad Makawi, you look back at these routines that were like literally like moving art on stage. And I think we've lost that so much. And I think that is part of what is making, you know, and I love the sport of bodybuilding. I love it. It's been my life. And, but I think that for, you know, to have more people interested in it who maybe are not part of the sport, you have to have some entertainment. And part of the entertainment of the sport is beautiful posing routines. And, you know, things that are not just background music and then hitting most musculars and waving to the crowd for a cheers and more, you know, but something that actually like a Bob Paris routine, a Lee Labrada, where you're using the music as part of the movements of the body. It's not just background music. And I really would love to see, and maybe you agree with me, that if they're not going to bring, if they're not going to make that a round anymore, which they probably will never make it a judged round, I'd love to see more a reward for best poser trophies, maybe at shows, maybe a $10,000 reward or something, just to make the athletes spend a little bit more time on that art of the sport, so where you see people actually putting the time and effort into opposing. Because I remember when I would get ready for shows myself, I'd stop practicing my routine 12 weeks before. I mean, I was like, I wanted this thing to flow beautifully, and I won Best Poser Trophy because they had them back then. I want to put on a show for the audience
Yeah.
of either part entertainment, but also part beauty and artistic, making it an artistic endeavor. And that's because that's what is the physique? The physique is living art. It's living sculpture.
Yeah.
And that's something that I really want to see back in the sport as well. I think that would
Well,
elevate the sport.
that already happened at the Lee Haney Games.
Yeah.
We give Best Posing Award.
Oh, great.
Fantastic.
And we also give Best Coaching Award.
Oh,
So we
wow.
do that. We've
Wow.
also given Lifetime Achievement Award to like Linda Murray,
Yeah.
to Robbie Robinson. So
Yeah.
we honor those who've gone before us. Now, as I said, the Lee Haney's Classic Bodybuilding Championship will be the reset in the world of bodybuilding.
Yeah.
Although this year we're just amateurs for this time, but we're looking to morphosize into something even bigger. So yes, that standard of symmetry round, muscularity round, and posing will be the standard by which our judges will look for at our show, period.
And
So you heard it from me. This is happening. We are the reset.
yeah. And the way I said, sometimes you have to go to the past to correct the future. I always believe that.
You hit it right on the nail. Perfect.
It could be anything. It could be life. It could be politics. It could be what's happening now around the world. We have to sometimes turn on the television and look at the History Channel and say, wow, this already happened. We have to,
Yes.
what did we do? And bodybuilding is the same. People tell you, you guys of the 80s, 90s, 70s, always complaining, the guys today are way better. There are good bodybuilders today. There's the passion. But you have to look back at what worked in the past as well and combine it and remove things from today and add these. And there are people that can do it. And I'm going to just say it. Some people are influenced and they're too scared to open their mouth to say, listen, we have to fix this. But I mean, I've tried many times, but when you're the small fish in the sea, sometimes the bigger fish try to eat you, but I managed to, get away. People have to come out and just say, listen, this is wrong. You go to the powers to be and say, listen, it's wrong. We're going in the wrong direction. But going back to your show, do you think you do other shows, Lee? Now since like you're on your own, basically.
Well, we'll see what happens. There's some big things in the making, and I've already had people coming at me wanting to do other shows already.
Fantastic.
They want to be a part of this movement of resetting bodybuilding.
Yeah.
And so we're looking forward to working with these various promoters, different entities, to be that reset. Like you were saying, Kevin, a lot of people, want to say, but they won't say.
No.
Well, I've never been a man that was in fear of another man or whatever, because, I'm a son of the Most High God. He teach me not to walk in fear of man. I'm only to walk in fear of him. Yeah. So if he's setting in my heart to do the right thing and to stand on the positions that's good, then I have to do that. Yeah. Because I'll be held accountable for what I didn't say when I had a chance to say. Yeah. See, that's the key to greatness, having balls and not allowing somebody else to squeeze your balls.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've had a nice set of balls for 8 years. I'm going to keep them too.
And what I admire, you're 8-time Mr. Olympia. You don't rub it into people's face. You know what I mean? You're proud of your accomplishments. You use it to help your popularity to make the sport better. And when people say, oh, he's just an older guy, complaining because they all believe, like I said, the past is better than now. But you've been there, you've done that. You won 8 straight. You came out healthy. You're still, doing things, expanding in the sport and things like that. And that's how it should be. I mean, not, people doing it for 2 or 3 years and all of a sudden they write a message and they say, I have to, that's it, I quit because I'm falling apart, and you don't hear of them anymore. And it's all this, feel sorry for me thing. You know what I mean? But
Yeah.
the warning signs were there before. People tried to tell you, other people in the industry indirectly, not. And the thing is today, if you tell somebody something, you hurt their feelings, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, you have to, this guy's telling me the right thing. Sometimes the truth hurts, like other,
Yeah. 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 Sometimes, as I had conversations with some people in our industry who, you've heard people say, well, Lee Haney is whining, he's not in touch.
Yeah.
How can I not be in touch?
Yeah.
This is who I am.
Yeah.
Ever since I was 11 years old, I've been lifting weights. I've been reading.
Yeah.
I understand the culture. What a lot of the young athletes are not, they don't know the history of our sport.
Nothing.
When you look at those who made the sport. I've met Larry Scott. I've been around Albert Beckles. I met Sergio Olivier. I've been in Arnold's office.
Yeah.
I have Dave Draper, Dennis Tenorino, Danny Padilla. I know these people, Dave Johns, Johnny Fuller.
Yeah.
Most of these young athletes have no clue about our history.
Nothing.
One of the other sad things that really breaks my heart is that we don't have a voice that is helping to educate them about it.
Exactly. Yeah.
It's sad. I received this year, we had the 60th anniversary for the Olympia this year. And I can't say how much I appreciate the gift that Jake Woods, the new Olympia owner, presented the former Olympians with.
Yeah.
And that was great, and Jake is sort of the umbrella, but he has people under him that work on his behalf.
Yeah.
But then I got they gave away the cards, the cards. I wouldn't say they're historical because when I received these cards, a card, a little nice little thing that they put them in, it was very nice, but none of them mentioned Larry Scott.
Yeah.
None of them mentioned Sergio Olivier. No, there was no picture of Chris Dickerson.
Yeah.
There was nothing of Bill Pearl. Yeah. It was not, it's like, why do we not love our history? Why is it not written in shrine, the guys who made our sport? So it's heartbreaking. When you talk about boxing, Muhammad Ali, Joe Frazier, you talk about basketball, Larry Bird, and you got all of these guys. You talk about boxing, Marvin Hagler and all of these, sports. You're talking Joe Namath, football. You know these.
I remember them all. Yeah.
Why we don't know anything about those who went before us in the sport of bodybuilding?
Yeah.
Only us older school guys know that.
Yeah.
Like you were saying earlier, if you don't know your past, you cannot better the future.
Yeah. I mean, just a small, I don't know how much time you have. A small example. I was at I think it was the 2000, about 5 or 6 years ago, I was at the World Championships in Spain, and thousands of athletes. I went for a walk, and I came back. I walk into the lobby, and I see this blonde guy sitting down, by himself. I walk up to him. I say, "Tom Platz, how are you?" Hey, he recognized my logo. I said, "I'm Kevin." We did 3 days talking about the history of the sport. Tom Platz's philosophies.
Oh, yes. I love Tom.
He's the Kai Green of the 70s and 80s, Eric.
oh man, Tom, I tell you what. And again, I mentioned the physiques of Arnold and all this, but the character of Tom Platz is really something that I admired. Yeah. I love Tom. I love the way he dealt with the general public. Yeah. I love the way he presented himself. Out of all the guys, I love his charisma the most. Yeah. So I've always, I think the Olympia in 1985 when we were in Belgium, me and Tom trained at the same gym there in Germany. We had a great time. I got to know him more. And I count him as a dear friend, as one of the greatest. But, and again, it's tragic that our sport doesn't do more to remember our athletes who came before us.
And
you know, so hopefully somebody hear this that can make a difference. I mean, I don't own the you know, the Mr. Olympia, but what I do have power over is the International Association of Fitness Science. And that's something that me and John Hansen has been talking about for the last 2 years. So John is already at work building content that will be part of the IAFS, our historical categories, so that the athletes coming, being a part of going online with the Lee Haney's Classic Bodybuilding Championships will be educated to know who's who and when it happened. Well, so with that being said, Kevin, I have to go to the restroom.
So Lee, what can I say? Thank you. And hopefully you'll come again, speak to me and Eric on.
Oh, yeah, man. I'm looking forward to it. I had a great time. Thank you so much. And Eric, I appreciate what you do, my man. I'll be reaching out to you concerning being involved with the IFS. I'd love to have you.
I'll send you his contacts, Lee. Yeah.
Let's do that, man. Thank you so much. God bless the two of you. Keep doing what you're doing.
Thank you, Lee. It was an absolute honor and pleasure to have you on the show and to get to speak to you, living legend, all these years.
A dream. When I told Eric, I said, Lee's coming on the show. Forget about anything else.
and Lee, may I say, just in closing, that as incredible of a bodybuilder as you were, one of the best ever to don posing trunks, what I always appreciated about you more than anything was the kind of man that you are. You know, just a gentleman, a good person, a family guy, person that cares about other people, didn't criticize other people. He's just a true ambassador of the sport. So I want you to know that I appreciate you as a man as well as a bodybuilder, and something I needed to say to you. So,
well, thank you. I really appreciate it, man. And I want to share something in closing. When I was 17 years old, I got on my knees one night before going to bed as a teenager, and I prayed. I said, Lord, if you see fit to make me the best at this sport that I love so much, I'll go before the world and give you the praise and the glory. So apparently he heard something in that prayer. How you win the Mr. Olympia 8 years in a row? It doesn't make sense. So I use my gift that he blessed me with to gift and be a blessing to others. That's what the whole journey is about.
Thank you, Lee.
All right, Lee. Go to the bathroom.
Take care. All right. Thank you for huggy, okay?